Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My daughter is demanding I fire her ex because she broke up with him. After that, was it wrong of me to pay for a separate hotel room because I hated my husband's surprise? And after that, am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that she's spending her child support money irresponsibly? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets a sore throat. Stay away from me, Reddit boy. I don't want whatever it is that you have. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My daughter is demanding I fire her ex because she broke up with him. The boy in question is named Jaden, 22 male. Me, 45 female, and my husband, 46 male, have known Jaden for 15 years since he's the son of one of our friends. My daughter, Tati, 21 female, and him have had the same friend group for a few years now. In college, they befriended this girl named Paige, 21 female. My hubby and I loved Jaden with all of our hearts. Tati is our only kid, and we thought of him as our son. We believed they would get married one day, so I decided to teach him the family business since he was 17 years old, so that he could take care of it one day. Tati is not interested. I hired Paige for a while, but she ended up quitting because she had to take care of her mother because she broke her ankle. A year ago, Tati told us that she and Jaden were expecting, and while we were worried because they were too young, we were happy for them. Sadly, she lost it and ended up very depressed. I saw Jaden doing everything she wanted. As you can imagine, my daughter began to snap easily and started to treat the poor boy badly. We talked to her. We told her it wasn't fair, but she wouldn't listen. She said we didn't understand, nor did Jaden. During a fight, Tati broke up with Jaden. It was pretty common during those days, and he always came back saying sorry, but that time, he didn't. He kept showing up to work. He kept talking to my husband and I, but it seemed that he was done with Tati. And as unfair as it sounds, I don't blame him. Eventually, he started to date Paige, and this, obviously, enraged my daughter. She demanded I no longer leave the business to Jaden because he wouldn't be family anymore. I stupidly said yes because my daughter was grieving and heartbroken. Jaden understood. I thought that was it. Tati never demanded anything else until 2 weeks ago, when Jay told us that Paige was expecting. I guess it triggered Tati, so she demanded, again, that I fire Jaden because he has no business around us anymore. I don't know why, but I declined. It doesn't seem fair. Jaden has proven to me that he's cut out for this. He knows what he's doing. He's a good boss. He's smart and people trust him. So I said no. Tati went to her dad crying, and my husband demanded I fire Jaden ASAP, but I said no again. He said he would fire him himself then, and I said he wasn't allowed because the business belongs to my side of the family and my dad was still alive, so he had the last word. My husband keeps telling me that I'm the jerk for choosing Jaden over Tati, so maybe, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your daughter is trying to make this guy's life horrible. Why? Because she's upset that she was toxic towards him. She's upset because she broke up with him and he didn't come crawling back after dealing with her snapping at him. Sounds like she was mistreating him, by the way. I would be disgusted with my husband for wanting to enable her malicious and downright disturbing behavior. And of course, I would find my daughter's behavior deplorable if she acted this way. She's hurting people because they didn't enable her behavior. She's lashing out over what? Facing the consequences of her own actions? I'm sorry for her loss, but grief is not an excuse to treat other people poorly. Your daughter needs to grow up and, quite frankly, recognize that the world does not revolve around her. She seems to think otherwise. Not the jerk. There's no way you should fire an expectant father just because his ex is throwing a tantrum. Apart from being unethical, that could expose your business to severe legal and social liability. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you fire him or not? Please let us know. I'd exile my daughter is what I'd do. Was it wrong of me to pay for a separate hotel room because I hated my husband's surprise? Me, 40 female, and my husband, Sam, 43 male, have 3 kids. After the birth of my youngest son, Sam and I almost never went on a romantic trip alone, as it was very difficult to reconcile for several reasons. When my youngest son turned 18 and moved because of college, I was very excited because we always agreed to go to France to stay in a wonderful hotel in a fancy room because it was my dream, and with 3 kids, I couldn't do it totally. My husband then asked to make a surprise. He would run after everything, booking restaurants, booking a hotel, plane tickets, but I told him which hotel I wanted to stay and the type of room, as it was always my dream trip with him. We have an excellent financial condition, so we could easily pay for it. We arrived at the hotel. He spoke to the receptionist and we went to the room. I was in shock when I found my kids and mothers waiting for us. My excitement went downhill from there, and honestly, I couldn't hide it because it wasn't what I imagined it to be. And it got worse when he said that because there were too many people to pay, he got cheaper rooms and that our sons would stay with us because it was cheaper. I tried to keep up appearances, but I gave my husband that look, and when I could, I went to the receptionist and asked for a better room for me. I paid with my service bonus, which is something my husband and I don't share, agreed between us. My husband was super annoyed, saying that this was a rude thing to do and that he wanted to have a family time, but couldn't afford something more expensive. In addition to having reacted badly to his surprise, it would be everyone's first time, and he wanted to give this moment for the first time at the same time to everyone. He didn't even want to go to my room. I loved visiting all the places, but having the presence of 5 more people, it was extremely discouraging. I love my kids, my mother, and my mother-in-law, but it was my dream to have a romantic trip for 2. It is worth saying, every year, except during lockdown, we travel to another country. We have never been to France. The trip was okay. My husband and I were obviously not doing very well. When we got home, he said my attitude of paying for a more expensive suite was childish and made everyone uncomfortable, and that my discouragement spoiled our trip. Am I the jerk? Extra. Yes, when I said I wanted to go to France, I said I wanted a romantic trip only for 2. Extra. As I understand the reason, he said he did it because it would be our first family trip after 2 years without traveling, and that we could do this trip now and do one in a few months, just the 2 of us. Not the jerk. Your husband knew exactly what trip you were expecting. He knew what hotel and room you were expecting. He decided to change it and was upset when you weren't okay with him unilaterally changing the plans. I'm sure his logic was, we do a family trip someplace every year, so this should be that trip. Why wouldn't it be? But if he wanted to be that logic, it needed not to be a surprise. It needed to be a discussion, because he knew that you guys had waited to do this trip until there were no kids left in the house. His attitude of thinking you had spoiled the trip when he was the one who had is a problem. You specified you wanted a romantic trip for 2 to France. He invited your kids and mothers along as a surprise. You're not the jerk, but in my opinion, paying for a more expensive hotel room is the least of your problems. I would be asking him, why did he invite others along and think you would like it when he knew you wanted and were expecting a romantic trip for 2? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that she is spending her child support money irresponsibly? My girlfriend and her daughter's father broke up almost 2 years ago. Their daughter just turned 3, and she put in a petition for child support a little over a year ago because when they broke up, she had to buy mostly all new things for their kid. The father agreed to help, but ended up leaving my girlfriend to pay for everything alone. Support was finally settled, and he owes her $6,000 in back pay, and instead of paying it back in increments, he offered to pay it in full. My girlfriend was so excited, she said she was going to pay off credit cards that she fell back on because she struggled financially, as well as use the money to find an apartment and get clothes for herself because she hasn't gotten any new clothes since she had her daughter because she couldn't afford it, except for things I've bought her. Then said the rest will go in savings for her daughter. I told her that all the money needs to go in savings for her daughter or be used for things for their kid because that's her daughter's money, not hers. She gave me a pretty nasty glare and said, "No, this is my money. I'm being reimbursed for struggling alone since I put in the petition. I can spend the money however I please, and I'm not doing it recklessly, so why does it matter?" She was pretty upset and has been pretty short with me since. I think what she's doing is pretty crappy behavior, while she thinks I'm the jerk for overstepping and not considering how much financial hardship she's gone through. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk and if I'm being inconsiderate, or if I was right and she is being irresponsible. ETA. After reading all of your comments, I now see where I am the jerk. I made the mistake of looking at this back pay as new child support payments and not reimbursements for the hardship she's gone through. I will be giving my girlfriend a much-needed apology and won't budge into business that isn't mine. I need to realize that when she told me it wasn't a welcoming for my opinion, but she just wanted an ear to express her excitement and gratefulness to. Thank you, everyone. You're the jerk. Child support is meant to mitigate the costs of raising a kid alone. She's been making ends meet without that support, and now she's using the money exactly as it's meant to be used. He has not been paying, and now she is literally being reimbursed for carrying the cost alone. Goodness, she had to go into debt to support her baby, and you think she shouldn't use the money to pay off the debt? That's absurd. Paying off credit cards, finding a home for her and her daughter, and basic necessities like clothing that she sacrificed while spending all her money on her kid when she had no support are completely appropriate uses for child support money, not to mention important ones. Do you think she should just stay in debt and not find a home for her and her kid? Neither of those options are good for the kid in the long run. You sound incredibly out of touch. So, she's recklessly spending child support money on things like getting stable housing for the kid and paying off debt she incurred while supporting the kid on her own? You're the jerk. Her finances aren't your business. Am I the jerk for having the same standards for my daughter as my sons? I, 48 female, have 5 kids. The twins are 16, male, and my triplets are 15, male, male, and female. Currently, the 16-year-old male twins share a room. The 15-year-old male twins have a room, and the single girl has a room. All kids could have their own rooms, but they chose to share. This year, my boys all came together. They asked if they could all pool their birthday money for a room makeover. They wanted their beds and clothing to be in one room and desks in the other room for a gamer's paradise, and have been saving last year's birthday presents and have been saving their Christmas money for the last 2 years. I painted their gaming room a dark gray with leftover paint from my parents' renovation, but added LEDs as the main light source on the ceiling and under the desks and in each shelf. Made the closet into a built-in bookshelf for video games and their figurines, along with wall shelves, added a couple of mini fridges for drinks, a mini snack vending machine, and painted their desks to match. Then changed their sleeping and clothing arrangements. I did not spend any additional money outside of the budget, and boys all helped with manual labor of moving stuff and painting furniture that my daughter did witness. Now my daughter is jealous I didn't do her room as well. We explained that the boys have been saving money and birthday and Christmas presents, and she asked to make a total room makeover plan too. So we did, and it would cost about the same as what the boys did. She wanted all new furniture along with painting it and crafting setup. I told her if she wanted exactly this room, she would need to contribute this much amount of dollars, and even came up with a plan if she wanted to do extra chores. All kids get this opportunity. But if she didn't want new furniture, we could repurpose the old stuff we have between storage and what's currently in there, and she could afford it this year. Edit. Since people are assuming it's huge amounts of money, overall her room would cost $1,200 with new furniture. Without new furniture and repurposing some of our old stuff, I'm only asking her to contribute $200, which is one birthday and one Christmas money. The boys bought things for the room with money from the past few years, like the lights one year, and I didn't buy the decor. It was all repurposed or built from other things. My husband thinks I'm not being fair to her because there were 4 boys to save money and there's only one of her. I said we shouldn't be picking favorites and all kids should be at the same standard. And yes, there's one of her, but I didn't buy the boys any new furniture and she wants all new stuff, not renovated. Well, we were doing early Easter at my parents' and my daughter asked Grandpa for money because I wasn't being fair and favoring the boys. I stopped that immediately and told my dad the entire story. Now my family is split on the verdict. My mom says I'm the jerk for the same reason of my husband, but my dad says I'm teaching her a valuable lesson on budgeting and repurposing. So my husband and I, who regularly frequent here, are wondering, am I the jerk for keeping my daughter at the same standard as my sons? Edit to the edit. My boys have offered to help her repurpose old stuff and even help her purchase the renovation materials, but she wants the new furniture. All the kids have the same hobbies except video games. She'll join her brothers on multiplayer when they need a fifth, but otherwise says it's a waste of time. When I asked why she needs new things instead of repurposing, her exact quote was, "It won't look like the TikTok if I repurpose stuff. I need new stuff." You're the jerk. I think your husband makes a good point. 4 people can save up quicker than 1 and can make 4 times income of 1 person. It's great that the boys chose to share, but realistically, this isn't a choice for your daughter. With this in mind, I don't agree that she is being treated fairly. I think asking her to save 1/4, as each of the boys did, would be reasonable. Your title is misleading. It's not really the same standard for exactly the reason your husband pointed out. There's one of her and four of them. She can't choose to share the way they did because she doesn't have sisters. You're the jerk. Valet closes when the restaurant closes, Karen. Happened a few weeks ago, but I'm still salty. A large group comes in at 6:30 to celebrate a birthday. It's 15 people. They have a good time and they leave at 9:30. We are a higher-end restaurant in a large city and offer complimentary valet service, which is practically impossible for our neighboring restaurants to provide. We've been operating in this location for years and have been grandfathered in. About half of the party decides they're not done for the evening and walk to one of the local bars still serving alcohol. We close at 11 p.m. Valet comes in to check with me at 11:45. The restaurant is empty and he has 4 sets of keys that no one has claimed and he's leaving for the night. I take the keys, place them in the safe, leave, go home and relax. The next morning at work, there's a ton of voicemails, all from the guests that showed up at 1:30 a.m. to pick up their keys to find valet closed. Each message is increasingly ruder. I call them to reassure them that we have their keys in the safe and they all lose it on me. 2 people arrive, reeking of booze, complaining that they couldn't drive home and had to take an Uber, and then demanded money as compensation. I was firm. I'm sorry that you were inconvenienced by the situation, but the valet service is for our restaurant only, and there's no way for them to contact you if you leave and go to a second location. Another group shows up and does the same. Now they're all standing outside the restaurant like a bunch of money-hungry jackals. To be honest, they were lucky they didn't get booted. 3 more people show up. It was like a video game, and this was the final boss. All 7 accost me with one angry woman as their ringleader. She demands $800 in gift cards, which absolutely will not happen. She then tells me she has recorded evidence of other managers resolving this issue with gift cards. First, no, and second, extortion. She then threatens my job, telling me she knew the owner. I ask her, who's the owner? Instead of answering, she just demanded to know if I was going to take responsibility for their inconvenience by reimbursing them with gift cards. No. Then she told me she worked for the city and was going to press charges. Okay, do that. She then DM'd my chef and owner on Instagram demanding a full refund for everyone's dinner, plus hotel accommodations and Ubers. The jerk told me to my face that she had to break into her own apartment and then demanded $300 for a hotel stay that never happened. She wanted $5,000 compensation for being too stupid to realize that valet is not a 24-hour service. The audacity astounds me. Edit to add. You know when you see a sign posted that spells out the obvious and very clear terms and realize some dum-dum is the reason for said sign? Come visit my restaurant. Valet has a very clear and direct sign alerting people that the valet is a complimentary service provided by the restaurant and closes when the restaurant closes. Dummies. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I'm not going to eat the same food he does anymore? My husband has been diagnosed with Crohn's disease 2 months ago, which means he has a very restricted diet, at least in the beginning. That's mostly chicken, fish, red meat, plain rice, pork, soup, eggs, no fried stuff, almost no vegetables, no fast food, no milk, no drinks, no seasoning or spice, no juice, no snacks whatsoever. Only bananas for fruits, and that's about it. It's been a very hard diet for him, and to be supportive, I started eating with him this stuff and only these in front of him and inside the house until he gets much better. It's exhausting eating the same food every day, but we've been experimenting. Sometimes roasted chicken, boiled chicken, roasted fish, carrot soup, etc. And here's the problem. Although he was getting much better, I was getting much worse because I can't handle it anymore. No French fries, no hamburgers, no takeouts, no salad, no lettuce, no tomatoes, etc. And I just can't. It's too suffocating for me. It's almost the same food every day. Every time I sit at the dinner table with him, I force myself to go through it. He asks me if everything's okay, and I tell him there's nothing wrong. I then started slowly giving up and preparing some side meals only for me. He gets really upset and jealous and can't resist when he sees me eating them, so he tries to get his hand on them multiple times, and I push him away and stop him, reminding him that it's for me, not for him, and he has to follow his diet for a few more months. 2 days ago, I completely gave up and entirely ate nothing of his food, only stuff like fries with sauce, etc. There were leftovers in the fridge, and I caught him eating them. He ate like 2 dishes. I yelled at him and he said it's fine, nothing was going to happen. 5 hours later, he got explosively sick and constantly was throwing up and in pain. He went to the hospital the next day. The doctor gave him new additional medicine, immunosuppressants. When we were back home, he was very mad at me and said that it was partially my fault for not being supportive enough and for doing what I did in front of him knowing his condition. I told him that I'm not the one with Crohn's disease. He's an adult and he should control himself. I also told him that I don't care if he gets hospitalized anymore. It will be his fault. He's very upset now and is claiming that he would have done the same for me if it was the other way around. I don't believe him. Am I the jerk? Edit. I also want to say that we both cook in the house. The problem isn't who cooks. The problem is what do we cook and what food can we have and keep inside the house. Note. I know that we're both upset with each other right now, and I accept your judgments, but please, for goodness sake, stop calling my husband names in the comments. It just hurts. You have got to remember that he is on this restrictive diet for like 6 months at least. It's hard to only eat boiled chicken and stuff like this for 6 months. I almost went insane just after a month from it, and I was taking fast food breaks outside and behind his back sometimes. It's very restrictive and depressing. I'm not excusing anyone, but now that I calmed down a bit, please stop insulting my husband. Final edit. This comment section had extremely diverse opinions, ranging from everyone sucks here to nobody sucks. From what I understand, he should resist the temptation more than this, and I'm still mad that he did what he did. But I'm not excusing myself from the situation. It was my fault for putting dishes, one of them was his favorite, in front of him like that. It was my fault for poor communication when I kept pushing his hands off the plates instead of actually talking to him. It was wrong to say that cruel line about me not caring if he goes to the hospital. It's not easy being sick with Crohn's disease and being on a restrictive diet like this after you used to eat all what you want. I'm going to apologize. We're both jerks in different ways. The truth is that this diagnosis was hard on both of us, especially him. He has to adjust to this new whole lifestyle for a while, and he doesn't even do his favorite things anymore, like working out as an example, due to a bland diet and exhaustion. But this is not going to divorce us. We're going to work it out no matter what. We still love each other. Our relationship has been perfect otherwise, and we are going to continue supporting each other even in the face of these challenges. To the people who sent me encouraging messages about joining groups for Crohn's and your different experience with dealing with IBDs and IBS, thank you so much. We're going to see into that. I wish you luck in your journey with these diseases. To the people who lack sympathy and keep insulting my husband even after I told them to stop, forget you. Just because I was angry for a moment and now I'm calm doesn't mean I'm going to let you insult him. Yes, he's an adult, 27. He should control himself, but just try eliminating 95% of food with no choice for almost a year. It will take a toll on you. You have provided him with the food he can eat. You were supportive at the start, which was very helpful, I'm sure. But you don't have Crohn's, he does. My husband is diabetic, and I have modified our diets accordingly. However, I still eat other food too. My husband actually doesn't want to limit what I can eat because he loves me. It is unreasonable for your husband to demand that you two stay on such a severe diet when it is unnecessary. Also, he's an adult and ate 2 plates of the food he knew was bad for him. Not your fault. He did it to himself, not the jerk. Am I the jerk for keeping my home too warm and not wanting to adjust it for my boyfriend? I, 31 female, have severe chronic anemia, a result of which is I struggle to keep myself warm and am always cold, even with my iron pills and transfusions when my levels drop too low. It sucks, but it has become a part of my life that I'm used to. I keep my flat at 28 degrees Celsius, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and never have it lower than that, as lower is uncomfortable for me. And even at 28, I need to have a hoodie and socks on for additional warmth. It means my gas bill is higher than the average person, but what can you do? My boyfriend, 30 male, attempted to stay overnight for the first time during the weekend and was horrified by the temperature, complaining of being too hot constantly and wanting me to turn it down. I apologized, but said I really couldn't, explaining how it felt painful if I got too cold. For anyone who doesn't suffer as badly as me with anemia, imagine the pins and needles you get when playing in the snow for hours. That's me when my temperature drops too low. I finally caved and lowered it to 25 degrees Celsius, throwing on an extra layer, and offered him ice water and to give him a desktop fan to try and keep him cool while also staying warm myself, but he was clearly uncomfortable and ended up going home at around 1 a.m. as he couldn't take it anymore. I was upset by this, but didn't try to stop him, as if he was that uncomfortable, there was no point in him suffering. On Monday, he texted me, telling me I seriously needed to go see the doctor if I was that cold all the time. And I tried to explain I've been to the doctors about this, and there isn't much we can do, as we don't know what causes my anemia no matter what tests we run. He has told me that he can't stay overnight if it's going to be that warm, and compared my home to a lizard's terrarium, which I admit hurt a little, though I know he was likely meaning it as a joke. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and been cold. I'm cold when outside or in the office or in other people's homes, so why not? I just like my home being a place I can warm up a little though. Maybe I was a rude host. I should have put his needs first. Not the jerk, but you two are not temperature compatible. I mean, he is a little for being upset when it's a medical condition, but I empathize. I couldn't sleep with a room that hot. I'd be devastated if that was the reason I had to end it with my current partner, but it just isn't feasible. And it's ridiculous to have the person with a medical condition compromise. It being a medical condition doesn't mean he can't be upset about it. He's entitled to his feelings. That said, he shouldn't have pressured her to turn it down. That's ridiculous. He should have just gone home. I couldn't sleep in it either. I'm leaning towards no jerks here. 28 degrees Celsius is very hot, especially for an indoors temperature. So I understand why your boyfriend wouldn't be able to sleep like that. I know I wouldn't. However, you have medical conditions that make it necessary, so neither of you are in the wrong. His comments might have been a bit unnecessary, but they did, like you said, seem like a joke. He told me we didn't have to see each other, so I didn't. A few years ago, I started seeing this guy casually. We both explicitly agreed when we started that we weren't looking for a relationship. That went on great for a bit, but a few months in, things started to get ambiguous. He started acting really inconsistently. Sometimes acting and talking like we were in a relationship, and sometimes ignoring me or getting really flaky. Now, personally, I wasn't actively looking for a relationship because I had a lot of things to focus on at the time, but I wasn't opposed to it either. It was good either way, so long as I knew what was going on between us. In hindsight, the ambiguity was itself a red flag that I should have taken at face value regardless of relationship status. But hey, we learn best through experience, and I didn't realize it at the time. So after a few weeks of him seesawing back and forth particularly hard, I had had enough and decided to talk to him about it. Honestly, I was fine either being casual or in a relationship. I just couldn't tolerate being in between, and I wanted to set up boundaries. When I tried to ask him about what he wanted to do though, he blew up. Basically tried to convince me it was all in my head, that I had made up his behavior. When I pushed him for clarity on what he saw us as, he responded that we're just two people who see each other when they feel like it, nothing more. Clearly not what he had been communicating before, but I did ask for clarification, so I get what I get. If he had said it without the gaslighting, I probably would have been okay with it, but at that point I was ticked off. So I said okay, talked with him for a few minutes, led him to the door, smiled goodbye, then closed the door and never saw him again. He probably thinks I ghosted him, but I know all I did was accept his terms. We were just two people who saw each other when they felt like it. It just so happened that after he blew up at me about the whole thing, I didn't really feel like seeing him. He did end up messaging and calling me a few times since then, asking to hang out. I answer, but I'll never see him. I don't feel like it. Pizza shop owner told me not to show up after 10:15, so I didn't. This story took place a few years ago, but I just remembered it after passing by the shopping center the pizza place used to be in. Background information. At the time, I was working for a window cleaning company and was paid commission. I got paid a fraction of whatever I cleaned. At the beginning of the day, we would be given a list of jobs in an area and drive around until everything was done. Usually the routes were somewhat random, meaning it was rare to get the same route twice in a row. Most routes had a large number of restaurants that had to be done before they opened, so usually we would have to plan out when to get to a job based on what time they arrived, so we wouldn't have to backtrack. The route in question will be called Springfield, but this route also had two small pizza places in the next town over, Shelbyville, that were always included because the company did not have any other jobs in that area, and Springfield was the closest town. Both of these jobs didn't usually show up until around 10:15 to 10:30, so I would often have to save them until all my other restaurants were done before making the 15-minute drive over. There also wasn't enough work on this route to justify sending two people, so whoever had it was by themselves. To the actual story. So one morning I'm driving out to Shelbyville and stop at the first job at around 10:20. This job is cheap, consisting of about one big window and a door. However, the lights were completely off and no one replied when I knocked. So I left to do the other job in the area before returning at around 10:40 to see someone inside. At that point, I get my stuff out and start cleaning the outside, only for the owner to see me and come storming to the door. In a very angry voice, he asks me what I thought I was doing. When I explained that I was cleaning the windows, as if it wasn't already apparent, he yells at me that I should have been there earlier, to which I told him what time I was originally there, that the lights were out and no one answered when I knocked. The owner assured me he was there, but that he just likes to sit in the back office with all the lights out, and next time I should knock harder. Lastly, before I left, after he refused to pay for the outside I had already done, he yelled that, "If you can't be here before 10:30, don't even bother coming at all." The malicious compliance. It was around this time that back in Springfield, my boss had picked up another restaurant that was about 10 times more expensive, but had the same issue of people not showing up until around 9:45 to 10 to allow me to clean the inside. This meant that every time I had this route, I had to pick between a job that cost $10 or a job that cost $100. I picked the more expensive one. Because this new place was so much bigger, even if I did the outside before they got there, it would still take me at least 20 to 30 minutes to finish the inside. Because of this, I wouldn't even start driving out to Shelbyville until almost 10:30. As a result, I took what the owner said to heart and stopped showing up. Also, because of some weird twist of fate, I ended up getting this route multiple times in a row, so this guy hadn't been clean for 6 months straight before someone else eventually had to do it. It became even funnier for me as during those 6 months, we picked up a dry cleaner right next door to him that I would clean while staying just out of sight of the pizza place. It also somehow slipped past my bosses that I hadn't been doing this one job as it never came up. When my coworker went to go clean it, the owner apparently thought we had gone out of business or something as he hadn't seen us in so long. Shortly after, he canceled service altogether, then went out of business maybe another 2 months after that.
Huge shout out to our newest official channel members, Stefani and the Zombified Fairy. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means the world to Reddit Boy and I. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.